Hello everybody and welcome to Arduino for Amateurs. This is episode number 25. We're going to talk about Arduino Nanos. As always, my name is Matt Gracie. I'm a hacker from Buffalo, New York. I'm a member of the Bidhaven Hackerspace. And what I'm talking about in this episode is a different form factor of Arduino from the ones that we've been using so far. In all the previous videos, I was using an Arduino Uno R3, which is sort of the standard Arduino you normally get in like an electronics kit. But what I want to do in this episode is compare and contrast it a little bit with an Arduino Nano, which is a much smaller form factor, much less expensive, but just as powerful. So we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between the Arduino Uno form factor and the Arduino Nano form factor, and sort of when we would want to use each one, right? So we've seen this diagram before. This is the pinout for an Arduino Uno revision 3, R3. And this is all of the stuff that we've used in these videos so far, right? We've got our digital pins, so digital 0 through digital 19. We've got our analog pins, all of these ADCs here. We've got our SPI pins. We've got our I2C pins. We've got our power stuff over here, a couple of built-in LEDs. All of this is built around an ATmega 328P processor. That's the embedded processor that's in these microcontrollers. And all of it works together as one unit, right? On the other side, we have a Arduino Nano. And you'll notice here the Nano also has 20 digital pins, 0 through 19, right? 0, 1, and up here through 19. It actually has a couple more analog pins because it's got 0 through 7 here. But it also has our SPI pins. It also has our UART pins here. It has our I2C pins over here. So functionally, everything that exists on this Arduino Uno also exists on the Arduino Nano. And in addition to the inputs and outputs, we've also got the same processor running at the same clock speed with the same amount of memory. Functionally, these are identical units. So what makes them different from each other? Well, I've got two of them here on my document camera. You can see down here in the corner of the screen. The first thing that you notice, of course, is that the Uno here on the right is significantly larger than the Nano here on the left, right? So because of that difference in size, we have a few things on the Uno that we just don't have on the Nano. For example, the Uno has this barrel jack for power. It also has a full-size USB connector. The Nano has no barrel jack, and it has, in this case, a USB-C connector. Some of them have mini USB instead of USB-C. Another difference that you'll see is that on the Uno, we have these sockets to plug our DuPont wires into, right? And we've used that in all of these previous modules, right? We plug wires directly into these, and from these into a breadboard or into a piece of electronic circuitry. The Nano, on the other hand, does not have those sockets. What does it have instead? Well, it may have header pins like this. The reason I say it may have header pins is that Nanos are sold both with and without the header pins already soldered in place. Sometimes, if you just want one for an embedded project where you're not going to need to plug it into anything, you just want to solder wires directly into these holes, you may want ones that don't have headers, right? You might want ones that can just be embedded into something, soldered in place, and left alone. In that case, you may order them, and they may come with header pins. They may come with two 30-pin header pin units, but you have to solder them in place yourself. In this case, I bought a 3-pack of these for less than $20, and they all have the header pins already installed. So how would I use something like this? Well, I have a couple of options. One is I can use a breakout board like this, right? And you see it there in the document camera. You tilt it back and forth a little bit. What this does is we can plug our Nano into it. We plug it into these sockets here, and then that exposes all of those connections through these screw terminals on the sides, right? So if I need to use this for rapid prototyping, the way that I would with an Arduino Uno, I can do it the same way. I can just plug it into this. I can use these screw terminals instead of these open sockets like on the Uno, but everything will work essentially the same way. Another option is I can plug it directly into a solderless breadboard, as I have here. So I'm going to move the Uno out of the way. And you'll see here I have a solderless breadboard with a Nano installed on it. The Nano is plugged into the breadboard. You can see here I've got the gap in the middle here, the trench, running between those sets of pins so that there's no connectivity between the pins on this side and the pins on this side. And then I can just plug wires into the other spots on the row and use that to wire things together. So I can still use this for rapid prototyping. It'll still work in the same way that my Arduino Uno did. It's just a slightly different form factor, right? Now, how can I confirm that this works the same way here that it did with my Uno? Well, let's set the Wayback Machine to episode 9. Here's Mr. Peabody and Sherman. If we go back to episode 9, you may remember that that was our introduction to NeoPixel rings. And so this is what our circuit looked like. I had this Uno R3 that I've been using all the time. I had 3 wires connecting it to a NeoPixel ring, this yellow wire here, connecting it to the data in. The power and ground coming off of my Uno connected to the breadboard, and then the breadboard connecting to the NeoPixel ring. So it's the exact same circuit, except now I'm doing it, let me slide this up a little so you can see it. Now I'm doing it with a Nano instead of an Uno. So down here in the corner, you see I've got my black and red wires, and I've got my yellow wire that's connected to data in. I'm going to switch over to the IDE now, and you'll see that this NeoPixel ring code, this is the exact same code that we used in episode 9 for the NeoPixel ring. What this does is it includes the NeoPixel library. It defines my pin number 4, right? That's what I used with the Uno. That's what I'm going to use with my Nano here. And you can see I've got the data wire plugged into pin 4. Number of pixels, 16. Yep, I'm using a 16-pin NeoPixel ring. I initialize the object. I'm calling it pixels. Then I do pixels begin. I set the brightness. I clear it. I do a show. Then my loop sets the pixel color, lights it up, waits for half a second, clears it, shuts everything off, half a second, and then loop back to the beginning. We're going to set this to 255,0,0, so that is full red, no green, no blue. So this is the exact same code that I used with my Uno back in episode 9. Now, from an IDE point of view, all I really need to do here is change this from an Uno to a Nano. So I'll go to Tools, Board, Arduino Boards, Nano. Right? I will plug this in. Okay, USB-C instead of the full-size USB. Just hold that in place here. And then I need to set the port. So I'll set it to USB 0. Oh, no, I want Nano on USB 0, not Uno on USB 0. Okay, USB 0, Nano. So I see here it says Arduino Nano on dev TTY USB 0, so that is correct. Now I hit upload, and it should light up my ring in red. And there we go, lit up in red and blinking. So you can see it's the exact same code running on the Arduino Nano instead of the Uno, but it's behaving in the same way. So why would I want to use a Nano instead of an Uno? If you have an embedded project, if you have something where it's just going to sit in a box or sit in a 3D printed case, Nanos are a lot cheaper, right? As I said, I bought a 3-pack of these, including those breakout boards and USB cables for, I think, $17 on Amazon, right? So I'm probably going to swap one of these in for that holiday tree that we have at the Hackerspace so that I can reclaim my Arduino Uno. If you have something where you're doing a lot of prototyping and wiring and unwiring and moving things around, the Uno might be a better choice, right? Because it's got those sockets on there. It's got the barrel connector for power, right? It might be a little bit more adaptable while you're prototyping, and then once you've got the code all figured out, you've got it ready to deploy, and switch it over to a Nano. You have some project that you want to solder the board directly into, well, A Nano is just a few dollars, right? You can do that much less expensively than if you try to use an Uno for a project like that. But the thing to remember is, despite the different form factors and the different size, the Nano's half a stick of gum in size. It's tiny. It's still using the same code, running on the same processor, at the same speed, with the same amount of memory. So really, the physical form factor is all that determines which one you're better off using. All right? Hope that was helpful. We'll play around with some Nanos in the future. Thanks.